I'll be honest with you guys, I love the Steam Deck as much as the next person. It's super good price to performance, and it lets you play your computer games on the go, which for most people was entirely unheard of with how expensive the PC handhelds were before the Steam Deck, came into the scene. But recently, I started having a little bit of worries with the Steam Deck. So the Steam Deck was in development for an untold amount of time, but the prototype hardware that was revealed in 2021 is the hardware that we ended up getting in 2022. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that the Steam Deck hardware is already kind of being overpowered by the ROG Ally and the Legion Go, and with recent game releases, it is a little bit worrying if it can keep up. So Doom Eternal is a game that released in 2020. Before the original prototype of the Steam Deck was unveiled, Steam Deck was most definitely in development at that point, but this is a game before it came out, just to kind of get a baseline compared to some of the games that are coming out today that don't run that great, if at all. And I just kind of want to show you guys and ask the question, can a Steam Deck keep up in 2024? Alright, so Doom Eternal is going to be our baseline game. This is a AAA title that actually was, on the higher end of graphics and a little harder to run when it came out. Not necessarily like Crisis level or anything, but it definitely was a pretty big AAA title with some complex graphics. So if we go to settings here, 720p, VSync on, ray tracing is currently off, but all settings are set to Ultra Nightmare with no resolution scaling or FSR or anything like that. And then if we turn on the overlay, so we can see we're getting pretty much a locked 60 FPS, and pretty much no matter what you do, run around, shoot stuff, do all kind of stuff, it'll pretty much stay locked to the 60 FPS mark. Obviously, this is an older title, but it's pretty well optimized in all honesty, and runs great on the Steam Deck. Has not dropped below 60 this entire time, and we are at Ultra Nightmare graphics. So this is no big secret, the Steam Deck can run games that came out before it was released quite well. And then if you turn on ray tracing, you do take a hit in frames, but it still runs. Just to give you guys a little bit of a comparison, we're looking at the floor here, and we have this super high quality ray trace reflection, and whenever we turn ray tracing off, just nothing. And this is still Ultra Nightmare graphics. But yeah, if you plan on getting a Steam Deck just to play Doom Eternal, more power to you, it runs great. But newer titles, increasingly so, are getting harder and harder to run Steam Deck's hardware. So going into 2024 especially, the Steam Deck might not be as good of a value as it was in past years. So that was a game that came out in 2020, ran at pretty much a locked 60 FPS. Let's move to a game that came out in 2021, just to move forward a little bit. So getting into Forza Horizon 5, which released in 2021, we're getting a locked 60 FPS. Granted, we are stationary, but this is at 800p. No FSR, no anti-aliasing, and medium preset. So with a mix of settings turned on and off like this, you can get pretty much locked 60 FPS. Perfectly smooth and playable experience. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you want to do the full AAA experience and play on max graphics like we were able to do in Doom Eternal, this game's a lot more advanced. There's medium, high, ultra, and even extreme. But we're just going to try ultra. And on ultra graphics, we are barely able to hold 40 FPS, which is still 100% playable, don't get me wrong. But compared to the fidelity of Doom Eternal and how well optimized that game was, especially on the Steam Deck, we definitely did see a hit in performance in this game. And this is why I'm worried about the Steam Deck in the coming years if they don't have some sort of big revision. In the moving from 2021 to 2022, we have Teardown. 2022 is the year that the Steam Deck was officially released to the public. Pretend that this is something that you're playing right after getting your Steam Deck in that, general time period. On absolutely maximum graphics. This game is pretty graphically intensive, and as you can see, we're getting right around 40 FPS just in the hub area. Now, walking outside, it does seem to go a little higher, to the 50s occasionally. But as simple as this game's graphics look, it does have very high quality reflections and lighting, so it is pretty difficult to run, especially on a Steam Deck, so we just cannot quite hit the 60 FPS mark, especially if we're talking maximum graphics. So I don't want to sound like I'm dogging on the Steam Deck for the entire video. I just kind of want to go through the time periods here, and where we're at with the Steam Deck, and what games we're at with the Steam Deck, and how it handles them. Because obviously as we're progressing through time to, larger and larger graphically intensive titles, the Steam Deck is faring with them worse and worse. And while the Steam Deck is still super powerful, while this is not a big AAA game, big AAA games simply are not optimized as well as they used to be. And the Steam Deck is definitely going to suffer from that. So tested games from 2020 to 2022, 3 separate games. Admittedly, I do not have a game to test for 2023, which is where Power World comes in. So Power World is sort of the entire reason that I, sort of decided to make this video. There's a lot of talk around Power World right now, good and bad. I'm not really going to go into that, but Power World is a game that I was super excited to play, and I've been playing it on my desktop a lot. So I went ahead and installed it on my Steam Deck. After all, I played through the entirety of Cyberpunk on my Steam Deck. While it was only at about 30 FPS, it was definitely playable at, medium to high graphics. So as far as I'm aware, Power World is the first, real big game release of 2024, and there are definitely going to be multiple going forward. But Power World is sort of the one to kick it off for this year. So this is the first game in 2024 that I've really bought, and I'm sure it's the first one that a lot of people have bought. And if you own a Steam Deck, in 2024, and you own Power World, you'll most likely try to play it on your Steam Deck. While Power World does not run bad on the Steam Deck, the margin of performance compared to a game like Doom Eternal that came out a few years ago is definitely obvious, even though Doom Eternal was still a graphically intensive game. I'm going to minimize the frame rate to this slim line at the top, just to make it a little easier to see, but let's talk graphics for Power World. So if you put the game on absolutely maximum graphics, it's out of the question on the Steam Deck, but I'm just going to show you guys anyway, just to show you what a new game on the Steam Deck runs like, especially cranked up. So Power World at maximum graphics at 720p, we are not even hitting the 20 FPS mark in the starting area with absolutely no other characters on screen. Which obviously, this is a very massive open world game. So I fully understand that this is more graphically intensive, and the Steam Deck won't be able to run it as well. But because of this game, I just kind of want to keep it on people's minds. I'm not entirely sure what game releases are slated for 2024. This is the only one I was looking for personally. Steam Deck is still a more than capable system, but the catalog of games for 2024 seem to bring it to its knees on the absolute maximum settings. Now this is no surprise, for Cyberpunk you had to use pretty moderate graphic settings to get the game to run well. But it is a little unfortunate to have the Steam Deck starting to show its age just a little bit. So if we go to options, right off the bat, we can turn all the graphics. There's low, very low, and custom. We'll just put on very low and hit apply. So at very low, we're sitting at about 22 FPS for some reason, which does not seem right actually. Well, now we're up to 28, 29, 30. Okay, well there's some buffering there. All right, so at very low, we're getting anywhere from 30 to 40 FPS. The game definitely does not look the sharpest. It looks like a Switch game, to be honest. But as you can see, it's at least running smoothly and you can play Power World on the go. Let's sort of tweak the settings here. Let's turn this up to the medium preset and see how it likes that. So at the medium preset, we're sitting close to 20 FPS. At 25 FPS by this teleportation point thing right here. And it's pretty much sticking to 25 FPS at all medium graphics. So strictly talking presets and not custom graphic presets, while you can make your own custom profiles, I'm just talking presets. Strictly talking presets, the absolute highest that Power World would be playable on at 720p will be low. At low, you're pretty much sticking right at 30 FPS, not much above it. Right now we're at about 28, 29, 31. Yeah, so pretty much we're getting right at 30 FPS, and this is definitely playable, and it looks much better than on very low graphics. Game actually does not look bad at all on low graphics compared to very low. So if you were to play this game on Steam Deck, I would just recommend put it on low, because honestly, at a glance on a screen this big, it actually looks fine. So yeah, the Steam Deck has been a pretty low power device its entire life cycle, but going into 2024, the Steam Deck may or may not be strong enough to run most games at their highest settings. Which, like I mentioned, Cyberpunk has some pretty crazy ray tracing graphics and stuff. You cannot run Cyberpunk on the max settings, and that game's a few years old. But Power World isn't even a AAA game necessarily, and even on the medium graphics preset, you're only getting about 20 FPS on the Steam Deck. And granted, I don't have any characters walking around or whatever, and I don't have any bases built or whatever. This is just pretty much an empty world. So like I said, this video isn't really to knock the Steam Deck's performance or anything like that, because the Steam Deck has always been the speed, and like I said, games like Cyberpunk ran even worse than this on high settings. But I just kind of wanted to highlight going into 2024 that the Steam Deck definitely does have a harder time with some newer titles compared to ones that came out a few years ago. Now Valve definitely will have a iteration of the Steam Deck in the future, but how soon we don't know. But for now, As far as I'm concerned, it's the best budget handheld to play games like this on the go, and the games are fully playable. So just be cautious in 2024 with what games you're checking out for your Steam Deck if you want to run them at super high graphic settings, because the Steam Deck may just not be quite fast enough anymore. So I hope you guys found this a little interesting. I just kind of wanted to talk about this, especially with Power World, since it ran significantly worse on high settings compared to most of the other games that I've tried. Power World does not have DLSS or FSR built in, so maybe that'll give it a little bump if they add it. Just kind of wanted to talk about the state of the Steam Deck going into the new year. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and that's all from me. I'm out. Peace.